Welcome back inside the Now Morning Show. It's 3 minutes after 7 o'clock this morning. We're chatting with Rhondall Feeles of the Single Fathers Association because we often hear about the legal system dealing with men who would have sexually assaulted women in a particular way. But how do they deal with men who are sexually assaulted? Good morning to you, Rhondall.
Morning. Thanks for having me.
How are you doing this morning?
I'm good. Hearing you loud and clear now.
Nice, man. All right. So, how does the legal system deal with men who come to report sexual assault? Is there equal treatment between men and women?
I would say society. This whole thing stems from society, and the legal system is just a branch of what comes out of our society, because our men and women from society that populate the legal space as well. And I mean, even in the case we saw last week with the gentleman in Tobago, and they reached out and they spoke to us about what happened to him. He was being sexually abused by a man for years and trying to make reports in the police station, and they weren't taking him seriously, and the man eventually killed him last week. So I think it's something that isn't taken seriously. It's something that men are being ostracized for. It's a taboo. Sometimes some men go to the police station, go to even certain centers for help, and you see people laugh at them and call them names and call them all kind of different, discriminate against them. So there's a general taboo out there, and a fear sometimes, a real fear, that a man who's going through these things never really reports it because he doesn't know how society is going to view him, if his partner is going to heckle him now, if they're going to really support him. Whereas in the vice versa, a woman who goes through this, her friends will be supportive. A man interprets the, hey, my partner's going to heckle me for the rest of my life. They'll call my nickname or some kind of thing like that. And that's because the way our society has been cultured. And it's something that's really been damaging, and it's damaged the reporting as well. Men fail to report. So we look at the statistic and say, hey, a lot of men are less sexually assaulted or raped now, because a man can be raped since the recent judgment the last 2 weeks ago, which is another development as well. So men are fearful to come and make these reports. When you look at the statistics, you think they aren't getting raped or sexually assaulted, but they really are, and they just don't know or don't trust the mechanisms in place to do that report.
How do we begin to fix this problem?
Bro, definitely we need society is the way we sensitize society. We need to see more ads coming from the TTPS, possibly with a man coming to make a report. You need to normalize. You need to make the young boys know that it's abnormal for a grown woman to sexually harass you or flirt with you or touch you in a place. It's not something macho. It doesn't give you a greater sense of machismo as a young 14, 15-year-old boy sleeping with a 30-year-old woman. These things happen. We've had cases come before us. We can't call the names, where young boys have impregnated their teachers right here in Trinidad and Tobago. And when you speak to the young man, he feels a sense of machismo, as if he's accomplished something greater than his peers can. And that's the way we've socialized boys. Not only women socialize them this way, but men also have made them feel like, hey, oh gosh, boy, give me a bounce. That's a good thing. When really and truly are exposing them to a realm that they're really not ready for, and they're inexperienced, exposing them to things like STDs. And some of these men who are rapists and some of these men who are sexual abusers, many of them were sexually abused as well. Not making any excuse for anyone, but that's just the reality of it. So I think we need to really look at the way we sensitize, and I would always say public advertising, public sensitization that comes from state, the Child Protection Unit ads. We're talking about ads coming from the ministry, Office of the Prime Minister, all these places that deal with ad sensitizing and raising awareness that this is a possibility that men can be sexually assaulted. And now they're actually saying, based on the last pronouncement from the court I saw at the Caribbean courts in Port of Spain, there in that judgment, that women could finally now be charged for raping men. That was something that they couldn't be. You had to have a penis and be able to penetrate to be charged for rape previously. So that's good to see that advancement in the law taking place as well.
Yeah. So, Rhondall, we're seeing that all right, we had this level of progress in terms of the ruling by the CCJ. We can agree that, that is a progress. And we want to progress the rest of society along with it. I hear you calling for the government bodies to be able to put the sensitization in their commercials, in their messaging. But what role does the private sector play in this? What role does corporate Trinidad and Tobago play in this? What role does each and every one of us individually, what is our role in this fight?
I mean, the same role that we play and the thing is, we know the roles, because we do it for women. So it's not going to be that difficult to extend it to men because the systems are in place. Private sector is involved in a lot of initiatives when it comes to sexual assault and rape against women. It's just about extension now. It's just about extending it on to men and not having that belief that hey, men don't suffer from this, or a lot more men definitely suffering from this. And even if it is true that a lot more men are suffering, you don't want anybody to suffer from that. So whatever you have in place for women that provide some level of protection or comfort or security for them to be able to report or for them to feel comfortable, extend it to men as well. You have to go a little further to make men feel comfortable. That it's okay to be in this circumstance. It's okay to be a victim. It's okay to feel like a victim. Then it also goes back to us at home as well. Our fathers and mothers who have sons, to start speaking to them in this manner and letting them know they can be victims of these things too. You may have a friend or a family friend, or you may have a family member that may be doing something wrong, and you need to culture your children in a way where they know this is not this is not how this person should be speaking to me, this is not the things they should be encouraging me to do. You need to make them aware and sensitize them because they can't afford to take anything for granted. We have in our family system, many of us, we have this culture thinking, hey, what's going on? I won't send my 16-year-old daughter in a certain place, but I'll send my 13-year-old son because nobody ain't doing anything. And we've seen historically the horror stories of Sean Luke and other Cherokee Chambers, and all these stories we've seen with young boys being sexually assaulted and young boys and these things happening to them, and yet still we haven't put up the guards when it comes to sexually protecting our young boys specifically, and also our older men as well. And it's so ironic, but I must give commendation where commendation is due. There was also something we had lobbied for a few years ago, where there was no protection for boys, as I said, for these things sexually, but there were laws in place to imprison them and penalize them if they had a girlfriend. Let's say the girl was under 13 years, the boy could have been 12. He was going to face the full brunt and penalty of sexual offense. Life imprisonment was the maximum penalty he could have faced at the age of 12. Yet we didn't have on the other end a way to protect young boys from being sexually assaulted or raped. I must say they have advanced now. I know they've introduced the Romeo clause that is a bit better, but we have to keep these advancements coming in law. And apart from law, our society ourselves must now have an appreciation that a man, or a male rather, can be a victim of sexual offense.
Rhondall, you mentioned one example earlier of a student who would have impregnated a teacher. I'm curious as to, were there any repercussions, or was there any need for repercussions? Because he said that the boy felt as though he accomplished something great, but in reality we know that it will get into a very complicated situation. Are there any repercussions in place to deal with situations like that?
That case actually came to us, bro, by the father, the ex-husband of the teacher. So the ex-husband of the teacher is who brought that case to us, but I'm certain you've never heard about it. So that goes to show that it wasn't in the media. It goes to show that everything was dealt with behind closed doors. But that case was a case that was brought to us to the father, and the father left the relationship, and the father had children also with the mother. And so that's the depths I would go to in that case. You understand? So these are things that are happening here, and as you said, repercussion. You possibly never even heard about that case in the media, while I knew when it was going on. So
yeah, I'm
hoping that these things never take place again.
I think that they take place a lot more than we know. Like you mentioned before, a lot of people don't report it, or a lot of people might think that it's normal because we've normalized a situation of, even in the movies that we watch and those sort of things we see where, a man being with an older woman is always an appealing thing. as compared to the reverse, which is shown as to be a negative and harmful thing, when they both can be, somebody taking advantage of somebody else in a situation. Rhondall, I don't even know, how do we assist the legal system to improve? Is there a way that we can do that? You say society, you say that, we have all our parts to play in sensitization and that kind of thing, but what can we put forward to the legal fraternity to say we need this in place, or we need that in place to be able to protect our young boys?
I mean, exactly. I mean, the advancements you have been seeing, or the changes, is because advocacy has been taking place. I remember with that Romeo Clause thing, I was beating the television, beating the radio stations because they were young. The reason that even came to my attention, that section of the law actually came to my attention in Sexual Offences Act before. It was a young boy who was younger than a young lady who they were boyfriend and girlfriend in school, and they caught them having sexual intercourse, and the young boy was charged, and he was younger than her, and she was more sexually experienced than him. And his mother came to me because now they was looking at him as a rapist in the school and these things. So, I mean, it was advocacy that made us continue to advocate. I know people who are already advocating previously, but we didn't put our hands down when we saw what was happening to this young boy. And the thing is, that's what you need to do. And we need to look at some of the laws that are in existence that are archaic and are no longer good or relevant, because you're talking about some of these laws from quite the early 1900s, and really see which ones are disadvantages against men. We've done so when it comes to women. We've examined the laws back to the 1800s to see where women have been disadvantaged, and we haven't done similarly with men. And I think men have to do that ourselves as well, and men have to advocate for these things. Women have done so for themselves, and we have to be ready to do so for ourselves. But women must support us, just like men have supported women to have change for themselves. It must be a united stand when we see imbalance or partiality in any aspect of the law. All advocates must be able to stand together at a point in time to say, hey, let's have the right thing done.
Thank you so much, Rhondall. I think we can leave it right there. Let's have the right thing done. Thank you so much for joining us. Take care. Enjoy the rest of the day. That's Rhondall Feeles from the Single Fathers Association. And, I agree with him 100%. We have to stand together to have the right thing done, because the right thing is the right thing is the right thing. Yeah. How do you feel about that, Tash?
I couldn't agree with you more. I think it's something that definitely needs to be addressed. Something that really hit home for me when he mentioned that last, case of a underage boy and girl having sexual intercourse, and the boy is charged. Yeah. At the end of the day, both of them need to be held responsible. Now, one of the things also that I'm hoping that eventually as a society we can work towards, and we've seen it just happen in Barbados at the end of last year, is where we also start to look, at the situation of men raping men as well. I know it's
he mentioned that. Yeah. He mentioned that with regards to the guy who got killed in Tobago, because he said it was a situation where he kept reporting it and nobody took it seriously.
Nobody took him seriously.
And that's a challenge that we face across the board. Like, I remember when I was younger, there was a girl who was threatening my friend and I. She was threatening because she was, passionate and upset and whatever, but she was making threats. And my friend, who knew her better than I did, said, those threats could be real.
Yeah.
And he said, let me go and report it to the police station just in case anything was to happen. And when we went to report it to the police station, the policeman laughed at us.
Yeah.
And they said, well, is he ex or was she vexed with you? Or?
You see, that's the entire thing. And same thing when he spoke about teachers being impregnated by students. It takes me back to a case, I believe it would have been in the early 90s, with Mary Kay Lawtono and her student, who then became her husband. Then they got divorced, and they had an entire family together, and she was charged, right? And that was one of those landmark cases as well that we saw coming forward. But again, it's still the norm, so we do need to work together. I couldn't agree with you more, and I hope too we get to that point where you can go and report and not feel threatened or intimidated or humiliated.
And the thing is that it's both genders. We need to be able to, because I saw a ridiculous case yesterday where a woman's rape test kit was used in her DNA identification, and they arrested her wrongfully and tied it back to that, and it was a whole big mess. So we need to be able to fix the way the system works so that it benefits each and every one of us, and not just, be corrupted and messed up. And we take a break and come back with more. Have some coffee. We'll be back.